successful is a very high level of expectation.
Upon hearing terms like global illumination, subsurface scattering, and hyperreality, one may come to the conclusion that scientists are talking about a comet hurling toward Earth, when in fact, that very terminology is being used today in the making of Shrek 2, which showcases some of the most astonishing breakthroughs ever in computer animation.
Technology has advanced in a number of ways that make Shrek 2 better, bigger, more beautiful than Shrek 1. One of the things that we're trying to do is definitely we're trying to raise the bar, and we want to make sure that we're pushing the envelope and really delivering something new for the audiences to see. In Shrek 2, we have a lot more human characters than we had in Shrek 1, and so we spent a lot of time kind of bringing up the level of, what the human characters look like. We have actually quite a few different hair systems and ways to deal with hair and fur so that it looked beautiful and perfect and moved nicely, and just in general that the hair would look more believable.
Shrek 2 is more intricate and more detailed in such a way that it's able to present a picture that is more realistic, and you can almost walk into this movie.
We spent effects time developing rain systems and moving clouds for dramatic scene where clouds roll in, and snow.
That really has helped a lot to bring this much higher level of hyper reality to our world. You don't know what it is, you just know you feel more a part of it, and that's the goal, really.
There were many things that we wanted to do in the first Shrek, particularly with lighting, that just were not really achievable on the scale that we needed to achieve them. There's a lighting technique that we have developed a shader for that we call subsurface scattering, which provides a translucency level to the skin. There's another lighting technique that we call the bounce shader, and this is a form of global illumination where you simulate the way light bounces around just in general, not just in skin, but within a room. More fur, more hair, more water, more smoke, rain, effects, fire, all of those things that were hard and we were developing them last time, we were able to launch off from that point and develop them further this time.
Shrek and Donkey, of course, get caught in a rainstorm and get soaked. I don't think that's ever been seen in a CG film before.
And it's beautiful. So people, even though we haven't seen anything between Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, they've definitely been working very hard to make sure that this is a whole new feast for the eyes. It's really great.
When you see Shrek 2 and you see a mere 3 years later what we are able to realize of our artists' dreams and imagination in that film, it kind of takes your breath away.
Computer graphics is still a relatively young industry, and together on each of these films we try to create and invent new solutions towards the creative ambition of each film. We have an amazing partnership with HP. A couple of years ago, we signed a strategic alliance together with our companies.
I think once HP got inside and understood a lot about our work process and our thought process, our creative process, it sort of opened up, lots of opportunities. So it's really become a good two-way street.
It's going to be champagne wishes and caviar dreams from now on.
Designing the incredibly stylized look and feel of Shrek 2 requires the imagination and expertise of many talented people, as everything in an animated film must be created from scratch.
To get the look of the movie going, we work in imagining what the movie will look like by painting, sketching, drawing.
Wow! Character designer Tom Hester plays a key role in defining the look, utilizing research, a fertile imagination, and clay to craft the film's amazingly rich characters.
With the sculpture, we can kind of talk about 360 degrees of angle there and really figure out how this character is going to look. We'll do several versions. We've got like 11 versions of the King character, for instance. Let's try him heavy, let's try him skinny, let's try him with a kind of greasy look to him, and let's try all these things. But we really have to identify the character first. At that point, we'll transfer all these sculptures and send them up to PDI so that can be digitized into the computer.
Oh, well, let's explore that, shall we?
Shrek 2 really, we always joke, is really like a fashion show.
Independent worked closely with animators in bringing a remarkable selection of wardrobe to fruition.
We design everything on an animated film, the fabric, The trims, the clothing, the jewelry, the shoes. Well, they're both festive, aren't they? I think the crowds are going to look amazing. We created fabrics that could be used 100 times over, punching in different colors. We found every way we could to multiply and to make it more interesting visually than just the few costumes we had before.
Once all the sets are built, the characters cast, and the costumes created, it's the job of the production designer and art director to oversee every little detail.
We have to design everything. Twigs, rocks, boulders, moss on the rocks, how it grows on the rocks, forest debris. So we had different levels of things. So forest debris would be from pine needles to oak leaves to bark to stones. We strategically placed those in the shots to give it a more natural feel. It's fairly challenging, but I think it works. It gives Shrek a uniqueness, and that's probably what part of its appeal is too.
Shrek 2 is just as amazing as Shrek 1 in terms of being state-of-the-art, cutting-edge technology of animation. So it's just even more of a spectacle than Shrek 1 was.
Well, the difficult thing this time is it's not just our movie anymore. It's owned by the entire audience. And because thankfully the first movie was very successful, there's a very high level of expectation.
Upon hearing terms like global illumination, subsurface scattering, and hyperreality, one may come to the conclusion that scientists are talking about a comet hurling toward Earth, when in fact that very terminology is being used today in the making of DreamWorks' new motion.
Almost walk into this movie.
We spent effects time developing rain systems and moving clouds for a dramatic scene where clouds roll in and snow.
That really has helped a lot to bring this much higher level of kind of hyper reality to our world. You don't know what it is, you just know you feel more a part of it, and that's the goal, really.
There were many things that we wanted to do in the first Shrek, particularly.
Has his world turned upside down when an army of fairy tale creatures invades his swamp. With an ogre as its hero,
Thank you very much. I'm here till Thursday.
a princess with a Cinderella complex,
I need to find somewhere to camp now!
and a hilarious big-mouthed donkey as the devoted companion,
Now we're getting somewhere.
Shrek is far from the usual fairy tale treatment.
The look of the film, I think, is completely unique. I've never seen anything like it before. It's like a highly plausible storybook world.
Shrek's richly detailed environments, complex lighting, and natural character movement wouldn't have been possible just a few short years ago.
Oh, the fun!
It was actually created and designed to take these digital tools and actually make the most of them. The amazing thing is how revolutionary the computer has been in animation. It's not evolutionary, it's revolutionary.
Cool. Shrek builds on the advances of earlier films, including the Academy Award-winning proprietary facial animation technology developed for PDI DreamWorks' own hit movie, Ants.
One thing that we learned from Ants was we animate the face with all the muscles on the face. So what we did on Shrek is we apply that to the whole body.
Perhaps the most interesting breakthrough in Shrek is designing the incredibly stylized look and feel of DreamWorks' new and clay to craft the film's amazingly rich characters.
With the sculpture, we can kind of talk about 360 degrees of angle there and really figure out how this character is going to look. We'll do several versions. We've got like 11 versions of the King character, for instance. Let's try him heavy, let's try him skinny, let's try him with a kind of, greasy look to him, and, let's try all these things, but we really have to identify the character first. At that point, we'll transfer all these sculptures, send them up to PDI so that can be digitized into the computer.
Oh, well, let's explore that, shall we?
It is, you just know you feel more a part of it, and that's the goal, really.
There were many things that we wanted to do in the first Shrek, particularly with lighting.
Enough now that I probably go overboard with that stuff on the third act, because what you don't have the objectivity to see is what you can afford to lose.
When you get to a certain point, fresh horses always seems to be helpful. I mean, you came in a little bit later, I came in a little later. A lot of our successful films have been when you have someone coming in
fresh
later who haven't been on it, nothing's precious to, and they're...
Because one of the first things I did when you had me come on in the movie was I went back and watched every version of the movie. But the only thing I remember specifically that you had taken out that I argued to put back in was having Nemo actually say, "I hate you." Because that had been jettisoned along the way. I mean, if you remember when you guys came on, I had hit a wall. It was a tough fall for me. I just couldn't figure out what was wrong with the movie. And I was getting to this dangerous place where I was questioning, fundamentals of the movie.
But at the same time, I don't think we had a morale problem internally because we were so excited about it.
And we did have a good time.
Absolutely.
And then that really seeped into the film, And the minute I put it in that space, it's much more interesting to go, how do you deal with that if that is the truth? And you're the person, because it's much more truthful, and Bambi did it. That is really cool. Yeah. I just want to toss one thought in about Steve Jobs for a second.
You had a lot of involvement with us on this film.
Yeah. I remember him coming by and taking a look at some of our very first water simulation tests. Some of the first decent-looking water coming back and just kind of, wow, this is pretty amazing stuff. And it was just so energizing getting that from him because then he could start to see what the film was going to do from that side as well.
You would really need billions of particles of water, but we can't do that. Description of the dynamics. At most in a million. The particles we use are big requirements. If you really wanted to do a shot you would really need billions of particles of water, but we can't do that. We can at most do millions. And so we have a lot of tricks that go into taking this fairly coarse grain description of the dynamics, turning it into a surface as the surface moves around, and then shading the transition in various ways of the surface from a solid surface of water breaking down into spray and then splashing off. You get a shot like this on an animation, right, that has no water, just the characters sort of holding on, and directing the color. I want like a whole ton of water at the beginning, and it'll sort of ramp down over the progression of the shot. And so the first thing we do is we start out